Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are watching. I would like to welcome all participants to our today's webcast, How to Promote Innovation for Digital Transformation. But like usual, before we start our webcast, let me give you some organizational input. The webcast will be recorded and you will receive access to the replay in the upcoming days. We also warmly invite you to ask questions. Please therefore use the question tool, which is part of Microsoft Teams. If we cannot answer all questions in this webcast, you will receive the answer after this session. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to our today's experts.
Hello everyone, welcome to our webcast. My name is Tobias Harland. I'm working as a senior manager in the Industrie 4.0 Maturity Center, and I'm here today with my colleague Felix Optehostert. Felix is responsible for the venturing services at our company.
Thank you, Tobias. Thank you for the kind introduction.
The subject today is how to promote innovation for digital transformation. Felix, you are dealing with innovation in manufacturing companies and the cooperation with new ventures in that regard. And everyone is talking about the effects of innovation on productivity gains within the manufacturing industry, as well as the disruptive force of startups in Europe and in the United States. Felix, I know you have looked at the effects of a statistical level in detail. Is there any data that shows a positive impact of digitalization on the development of the economy and on productivity?
Sure, I can give some insights on that. As you might know, a standard and well-known indicator to evaluate the development of an economy is the growth of the gross domestic product of a country. So the GDP, which is the sum of the value of all goods and services produced of an economy. And what is interesting is that since the first industrial revolution in the 19th century, the GDP and therefore the wealth of an economy in the industrialized world really has increased almost continuously. So there was a growth of the GDP. But when we look at the data in the last several decades, so even especially since the mid-90s, we see that the growth of the GDP really slowed down. Only in China there was an unmatched growth of the GDP, but in the other industrialized countries and economies there was really a slowdown. And this slowdown growth, in my view, is really surprising because you might suspect that digitalization, innovation, and also the connection of the economies worldwide would really enhance this growth of the GDP. And so you might suspect that there would be also dramatic productivity gains, and therefore a higher GDP from that. But what we really experience here is that there is a productivity growth slowdown actually on that. And there is a very well-known economist and also Nobel Prize winner, Robert Solow, who said, okay, actually you can see computers everywhere except in the productivity statistics. And so what is clear is, what I think is that productivity growth is highly dependent on innovation. So process innovation reduces manufacturing cost, and so that we get more efficient use of the input factors. And while products are also innovating, we have better quality of products, of the output, and more value of that. And so maybe let's take a look a little bit deeper on the data there, because when we look at the productivity growth really of companies, not only the GDP growth, but really the productivity growth of the countries, we can use an indicator which is called the Multifactor productivity, the MFP. And what we can see here is that this MFP really explains so when you want to produce more, you have to put in more. And the MFP really says, okay, everything that enhances the output while having the input at the same level is due to innovation, for example, in products or processes. This is what the MFP is measuring. And when we see that, I also brought a slide here. When we see that regard the world data here of the MFP, that actually confirms what we suspected. There is a stagnation trend in productivity growth here. Despite all this digitalization and innovation efforts that we have. And especially is the case since actually the 1960s. Yeah, so in Germany, France, and Switzerland and Sweden, there was really a stagnation in this productivity growth. In 2004, there was some growth in the US and Great Britain and in Japan, but also they had a stagnation recently. And also what you can see is in China, which has an unmatched growth in GDP, they have, since the last decade, they have really, even if they have this high-tech strategy and all the innovations happening, they also have a really decline in the MFP growth here.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So you say the growth of the GDP and the productivity growth have slowed down since decades now, despite the increasing digitalization efforts. And as productivity growth is highly dependent on process innovation, it would be interesting to see if there's also a connection to the innovation activities. Is there a correlation between the stagnation of the MFP and the innovation activities in Germany and in Europe?
So actually, yes, there are some indicators that will suggest that in Germany and most other European industrial companies, there's next or parallel to this productivity growth slowdown, there's an innovation slowdown actually. Yeah?
Okay.
Just a side note, also the rate of startups. Yeah, so the number of new companies compared to the total number of companies in Germany is very low in comparison, and this is very concerning, I would say, because new companies are always the ones where innovation is happening, process and product innovation is happening. But when we really look at the innovator rate, so the share of the share of companies that really have product and process innovations to the total number of companies, we also have a slowdown of innovations in Germany and Europe as well. I brought also a slide here which shows that this is statistics from the OECD and the Eurostat. They have data since the 1990s on this innovator rate.
Okay.
And you can see that Germany really slows down in the innovation. In 1999, they had 56% of the companies doing product and process innovation. And now in 2015, this is the last data we could get, is 35% of the companies.
Okay.
And this is not including, so this is excluding the marketing innovation, like I'm bundling new services or labeling new products. So this is really hard product and process innovation. And I would say this is very, very interesting that so less companies in Germany are really doing this innovation here.
Okay, so obviously companies are really struggling with innovation and with transferring these innovations into productivity gains. What do you think is the reason for that? What are the major problems that the companies are facing here?
So the answer might seem surprising, actually, because the inherent problem of the companies here is that they are handicapped by their success in the past, the success that they had in the past years. Maybe let me explain that with an anecdote. So I don't know if you heard of Steve Sasson. But Steve Sasson is actually recognized for the invention of one of the most influential technologies in the 20th century, which really turned a total industry upside down. He developed digital photography. So in early 1974, he was an engineer at Kodak Eastman, and he really developed the first digital camera. And they swept this technology, Kodak swept this technology under the carpet because they don't want it to, they thought, okay, it's hurting our business with films and cameras. And so today, from today's perspective, this is one of the, I would say, one of the most fatal mistakes of recent business history, because they really had a lot of potential there, obviously, and still now Kodak is one of the examples. They filed bankruptcy in 2012, I think. They are one of the examples in the innovation and management classes around the world for one of the most biggest failure in business, and so and now it's called the Kodak moment. And but it's interesting to have a look at why do these companies that are actually so successful fail at the day, and after all, because also Kodak had that, they had everything they need for ongoing success. They had the financial resources, loyal customers, they had the brand, they had intelligent minds like Steve Sasson, actually. And but what these companies really do is they have a problem. They do exploitation of the business segment that they already have. So they increase the performance of products and processes that they have, the business that they have, and they really focused on that, on the production, the marketing, and the distribution of the current business segment that they have.
Okay.
They are doing it very well, but they're really focused on that. And when we and so they really have failed because they didn't invest in new technologies. They groundbreaking technologies like digital photography and the Kodak example. They really failed on that. And now you might think, okay, why don't companies just do only exploration, meaning developing new business segments, developing new products, not just focusing on the efficiency in the current business? Why don't they do all new innovation? Yeah, because this is also not successful necessary in the end, because when you look at the startups, which are the embodiment of exploration and new business, they also fail a lot. And they also fail a lot in context of manufacturing industry, in context of digital transformation. Why do they do that? Because often they have a lack of domain knowledge. They sometimes do not consider the right needs of the market. They have a lack of customer base. They don't have the customers to do the piloting. They have a lack of they do wrong planning, financially, time-wise, and so on. And so when we look at that case, you can see that the companies that are successful and exploiting a current business segment have their strength in the weakness of startups or explorative units. And so so you really have to bring actually these both together, and because only exploiting a business segment, you miss new trends and so on. And actually, this is where ambidexterity comes into the game, which is a management concept which is a little bit older, but it has really grown attention in the past years. And this really describes the best of both worlds from these. So the exploitation, the efficiency of a core business and the strength of a core business. And on the other hand, simultaneously doing exploration, finding new business, innovation, and so on. And this is actually what I would say is really a capability of a company. When we talk about new digital technology in business, a capability of a company which is necessary to have this long-term success that you need.
Interesting. So, but in the past, companies have been able to survive or even to have a success with this stepwise development, stepwise innovation, slowly reacting to changing conditions in the markets. And it seemed that this was a good approach for them. What is different today? Why do they need to change? What is the difference for them?
Today we have a digital age, so we have digital technologies, and they really have changed the speed in the market. Digital technologies really penetrate the market at a much higher rate. They have really shorter innovation cycles, and this really leads to comprehensive changes in the competitive environment in a very short time. And in the past, when you had new products, physical processes, you changed. They really needed time to develop, to produce, to distribute, and so on. So you really need time to produce a physical object, of course. But when you look at digital technology, software-based solutions and process changes, on the other hand, they can be really distributed in a very short time to a large audience. They can be updated, validated on a quick notice. So this is very, very easy. And so you really have the speed in the market now of digital technologies. And so really the incremental adaptation of business, of processes, of the company is not longer successful. You really have to do both and this is really a strategic competitive advantage from my point of view. You really have to do exploration, new businesses, and you have to do exploitation, efficient processes at the same time, and really use both in your company. And this is something that's very important. To look at, or to see that also in the charts, when we look at the US market penetration of some technologies in the US households, you really can see this speed, the distribution of digital technologies. Yeah. So when we look at the car, the automobile, it took 57 years to reach 81% of the US households for the car to penetrate, or to reach the households. And social media only took 12 years to get the same market penetration, the same market share. So there's really a significant difference in that. Yeah, very fast technologies.
Yeah.
And many companies now, or some, not many, but some companies are now really seeing that and acknowledging that. So ambidexterity, this best of both worlds, is really, in some of them, they try to do that in their organization. So, for example, Airbus, they have a digital unit called Airbus Digital Ventures, and they really systematically develop and market digital business models, and really use the core organization of Airbus to get resources, finance, data, people, domain knowledge, and so on. And so they combine really the best of both worlds here. And this integration of the core business with the exploration is really, I would say, is very, very important. Yeah. And when we really look there, they really use the skills, they use the asset of the core organization, and they really take part, the core organization really takes part in this co-creation. Yeah? And on the other side, also the Airbus Digital Ventures brings knowledge and new businesses into the organization, the established organization. So when they develop a business model, they hand it over to the core organization, they exploit it, what they do best, exploiting. And the Digital Ventures still is there an advisory role, but they explore new businesses. An example is Airbus Aerial, which is a cloud-based platform for satellite data and drone images. Airbus has a lot of this data because of their satellites, because of some of their drone businesses and businesses that they are working together with. And Airbus Digital Ventures developed this cloud-based platform, which they handed over to the core business, where other customers of Airbus can use all the data that are aggregating from all of the Airbus world. Yeah, and there are, I think, 100,000 flown missions in over 7 countries. So insurances, farmers, also municipalities, local governments are really using this data. And this wouldn't be possible if Airbus Digital Ventures didn't, tried it and failed maybe in some cases and made mistakes, but also tried again, find new cases and used the assets that the Airbus world already had. Yeah, so I think this is very important to see, and they're really doing that.
Yeah, thanks for this example. Sounds very interesting. But it seems to be really an endeavor and many efforts to be made for a company. And I think also many areas that are affected by such a transition. What can manufacturing companies now actually do to come to this ambidexterity? What are the fields of action?
Yeah, so absolutely. So ambidexterity, the best of both worlds, is not a state that you achieve easily. Yeah. So in a short period of time, it's really not about only creating a digital unit or digital hub or an accelerator, and then you have it. Of course. So it's rather a successful combination of really the best of both worlds, of the corporate world and the innovative venture, and this really requires supporting measures that take effect in the strategy and the organization, IT systems, resources, and culture. So it really takes a lot of measures to implement that really with success in all of these fields.
Do you have some examples on what companies do, especially when we talk about the strategy, the organization? What did companies actually change?
So, sure, I have examples on that. Maybe let's start with strategy first. The company strategy, of course, is a key activity to define and control the necessary shifts that you need for technology, for competition, customer, and regulation. And what is important here is when you talk about ambidexterity in the context of strategy, it's a It's the ability, the capability of a company and the leadership team to really leverage and reconfigure the existing competencies, assets, minds, domains, customer, name it, in order to really make valuable input for the customer. So this is the core message behind that. Yeah. So you could say it's a dynamic approach.
Okay.
Yeah. And this dynamic mindset has to be in the strategy, but also in the minds of the leadership team. And this can be embedded by organizational processes and routines, around coordination, learning, and transformation of the company. And this also needs new skills, of course, for the people, new skills for the leadership team. So this is a very complex endeavor, and you really have to support the leadership team here as well. And they really could use in this dynamic approach different routines like decentralization, building digital hubs, differentiation, for example, also of different organizations within the company itself, or targeted integration of new startups. And at the end, the leadership team really has to orchestrate all these trade-offs. Yeah, what should we do? How could we pursue that? And what is especially important for our competitive environment? At the end, you can't say, okay, it's that and it's why. It really depends on the market and the company. But when we talk about the capabilities of the leadership team, you could say we have 4 mechanisms actually that can be considered by the leadership team in order to do that in the strategy. And first, you really have to create a common vision and common values. So you have to promote trust, cooperation, and a long-term perspective on that. So it's not just something that we do once time a week. Yeah, it's really something that is in our DNA now. Yeah. And for example, Kesa Kompressoren, a well-known company, they have their strategy, and they don't want to sell physical products, so transactional sales. They want to sell air as a service, actually. Yeah? And so they are really transitioning here, and their aspiration is to provide smart, compressed air, as effective as possible. And they have this clear vision, and they orchestrated all the activities that they had, and they also developed new ones, but they all orchestrate these activities like smart engineering, smart air manager, predictive maintenance, and so on, asset management around this vision, to have this vision driving forward. Second, a senior team really has to agree on the importance of the ambidexterity here. So really they have to prevent resistance. They have to encourage the team and the people, and also to share resources, to share knowledge, to work across borders, work across departments, and so on. And maybe also reward systems helps there. Yeah? Okay. And third, you have separate organizations, sure, but you have to align them, and you have to really target the integration of and leverage of the common assets that they all have, in order to really use that in the explorative unit, for example, from the core organization. An example is SMS Digital, which is a digital unit from SMS Group. They have outsourced all the digital activities there, and they have this explorative unit there. But they also have, due to the management, the close connection to the management and the commitment of the management against or for SMS Digital, they have this really, this commitment for this digital unit. And lastly, the senior leadership team really has to have the ability to tolerate but also resolve tensions here. Yeah? There will be always tensions, especially when you have these separate goals and visions here, not visions, but really goals sometimes. Really have to, people here that they can resolve conflicts, that they can resolve confusion also. Yeah, so they really, it's a mindset.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You mentioned that it is key to leverage and maybe reconfigure existing competencies and assets, and this requires communication and exchange of knowledge between the new venture, and the old, so to say, organization. Do you have some best practices, examples on how to strengthen this and how to do this?
Yeah. Absolutely. So the core function, organizational core function of ambidexterity, actually is the successful knowledge transfer that you have. Yeah? So between the explorative unit, the innovation unit, and the core organization. And so you really have to, the required domain knowledge from the core business really needs to be scaled by the technology and by the business of the new venture. And also new trends and new impulses should go from the new venture to the core organization. So this necessity really must be considered in the organizational structure. So despite all the freedoms that a digital venture and explorative unit should have, it always must take place in an environment where it is possible for the core organization to get insights from, to be understood and to be processed by. And this also means that the core business, on the other side, must brought to a higher level of knowledge. So they should only stand there, but they really should evolve and train themselves as well, so that they really can adapt these new developments. So it's a really cycle which is growing, and growing and growing. And through this connection, really the learning from each other is really made possible, only with this connection. And this also includes the recognition of changing market conditions, customer requirements, and so on. And for example, for this purpose, you can add Slack resources in your company, meaning you have contact persons on both sides who are trained and really facilitate these knowledge exchange between the organizations. You can also have meta routines like fairs or town hall meetings, something like that the companies has on a standard basis in order to really leverage this knowledge exchange and hand over products. For example, also the digital ventures from Airbus, they have this meta routine where they hand over the new business to the core organization in order to bring it to them, so they can exploit it and grow it, and they are focused on new, and the explorative unit is focused on new development. So this is also a meta routine. So when we took a look at some examples, also DMG Mori has its in-house fair one time a year, where new ventures like Werkblick, for example, can present their solutions, and so everyone can notice that as well. And First Alpine is another example. They really train on purpose, Slack resources as digital ambassadors. So these people from the core business, they get the methods, the knowledge, the insights to be digital ambassadors and to work together with explorative units, in order to leverage that, But at the end, you really have to be careful because too much Slack, not everyone should be explorative, So there should be always people who are very good in doing what they do and exploit and make efficiency in the processes and so on.
Yeah, interesting. So there are some best practices and companies applying these best practices. I would like to talk about another topic. So you mentioned in the Airbus example, for example, that it's all about using data, aggregating data, learning from data and leveraging data, and also data that maybe already exists in the existing organization but is used in a different way by the new venture. And I can imagine, also based on my project experience, that it's not so easy to first of all, get access to the right data, documents, and so on, and also to integrate into a legacy IT system or into IT systems in general. What would you recommend here? What can companies do here?
So absolutely right. So legacy IT landscapes. For example, in the core business, they really do not provide an ideal ground for new technologies such as big data analysis, mobile IT, artificial intelligence, and so on. And they're often static. They are prevent learning from data because they are not connected. So there are several IT systems in the use. But at the end, they cannot and they should not be thrown away. So what I want to say is, and what we also do in our product, we don't say, okay, just throw everything away and bring one new big IT system in the place. So, but also adding to this legacy IT system in the core organization, we have new technologies, new IT systems that the explorative unit wants, like you mentioned, Internet of Things. They really want also that, for example, in the user cycle to bring new services to their customers. And this brings more complexity in the IT infrastructure. Yeah. So also the core organization and the explorative unit, they're both really depend on their own IT systems and applications. And as I said, they bring in new complexity, but when you want to learn from data, you need the data from all the systems. So what we really need here is, and this is what we also use in our projects with the Internet of Production, we really need a harmonized layer that really brings this data from these separate systems together. So you could add new systems, new complexity, you may say, to that, but you can really use all this with the middleware, with the harmonizing layer and getting the data there, and then bringing it in a uniform and comprehensive data model. And based on this, on this middleware, on this data model, you sort of have a digital shadow of the processes of the product, and so on. And you can really bring this to a core application, which is then connected to this data, which can provide value to your customers internally or your external customers. And by that, you can really provide these digital services based on the knowledge and the learnings of the explorative unit and the core organization by this harmonizing layer that connects everything. Maybe let me explain that with an example, predictive maintenance, for example. So you could imagine there's a digital unit. They have, of a machine and equipment manufacturer, they already have a remote monitoring solution for their customers. They can see the pressure, the temperature of the machines of the customers. They do that by using an Internet of Things platform where they can aggregate these. So they have their own system, they have this data, but when they want to do predictive maintenance, they need simulation data from the engineering department, they need production data, they need quality data, they need maybe sales data and so on. And so they need data from different systems, also from the core organization to leverage that. And so this harmonized layer, this middleware that we have there, that can bring really the data from all the systems together in this application, and then you can provide actually predictive maintenance by using the assets of the core organization as an explorative unit. And in that way, you can really use that in a way.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So it seems that there are some companies already doing something in that field. You talked about many best practices. What do you think, or what would be your advice to our listeners who want to learn more about this topic and want to get further insights? Do you have something for them?
Yeah, of course. There's a book that I can recommend. It's called Lead and Disrupt by Tashman and O'Reilly, both professors, one at Harvard, one at Stanford, and they really do research and publication on ambidexterity. Since decades, and they have all aggregated this. I think this book is from 2016, so only 4 years old. They aggregate all the knowledge that they had into this book, and they make it very entertaining, also with lots of case studies. But specifically, when you want to learn about ambidexterity, combining the best of both worlds in the manufacturing industry and digital transformation, I can recommend our white paper that we have created. It's called How to Combine the Best of Both Worlds. I wrote this with my colleague Min. And you can download this on our website. We have also a QR code sharing here right now. And in this white paper, we really elaborate on digital transformation in regards to ambidexterity, also with different aspects like culture, IT infrastructure, organization, and so on. And we have a lot of insights and case studies in there as well, so that you can see what do other companies do in order to get more knowledge about that.
Okay. Yeah, Felix, thanks a lot. I think we have covered a lot of aspects in that short time. We have talked about the need of innovation for productivity growth, about the role that ambidexterity can play here, and why it is important for successful innovation of existing companies, and how strategies and organizational measures can look like to support this ambidexterity and the implementation. I hope we will come back soon to this very interesting topic with further insights, Felix.
Yeah.
But for now, thanks a lot.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much, Tobias. I think there's a lot to learn for all of us, not only for us, but also for the manufacturing company and the industry. And I'm pretty sure we will give soon an update and more insights on the innovation for digital transformation.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, so we are now at the end of our today's webcast. Thank you to Tobias and Felix for the valuable insights on how to promote innovation for digital transformation in an established organization. And a great shout out to our dear participants. We hope you enjoyed our today's session. And if you have further questions, please feel freely to contact our experts via mail or LinkedIn. And we hope to welcome you in 2 weeks on the 13th of September at the webcast session on how to reorganize to make digital transformation effective. So thank you very much once again. And the last thing to say is goodbye.